everybody again. Okay, let me start again. We had some technical difficulties. And please let me know if you cannot hear me well at any moment. So I'm going to be speaking about eclipses today, and I decided to call this Eclipses into the Dragon Hole. Kind of coming or drawing from a more Vedic or Eastern tradition, where eclipses are seen as dragons, each happening in each season on alternating nodes. And that would be one hole and the other, and into the dragon hole would be how the dragon kind of moves. And I chose this picture about the Orphic egg with the serpent around the egg, because if you are able to follow eclipses as they are born until they die, which takes them about 1200 to 1600 years, that's the lifespan of an eclipse, family of eclipses. One in particular within a family, they're born in the North Pole or the South Pole, and they travel across the Earth on a path that is very serpentine, kind of like this serpent here, and they would cross the entire Earth all the way up to the opposite pole, creating this kind of like serpentine movement, which is very related to evolution, to the origin of the world in every tradition, in every ancient tradition. And in the Greek mythology, the Orphic egg represented the egg from which the primordial god emerged and created the world. So there is something here about serpents and evolution, and we're talking about eclipses and how they happen on the nodes of the moon and how they represent in evolutionary astrology, in particular the evolutionary node. So there's a lot of food for thought here in how there's something about these eclipses that when they come, they kind of activate something in the collective, in the individual of this psyche, and they kind of illuminate something, show us something that may have been in the shadows, that may have been in the unconscious, for us to kind of work through it. Whether we do it or not, it's up to us, but there's definitely an evolutionary component to that. And let's see, so they have a very erratic nature, Uranian nature in a sense. So it's really hard to predict how they're going to show up, what they're going to bring. And a way to actually mitigate this a little bit is to understand that they happen in families. They're called Saros cycles. So if we know the particular Saros of that eclipse, and we track it all the way to when it originated to the natal chart, and we see what transits were going on then at the inception of the eclipse, then we may have a better idea at energies that the eclipse, that particular eclipse, is going to bring. Every eclipse is born, like I said before, in the North Pole or the South Node, and it begins as a tiny little eclipse, which is like a penumbral eclipse. And as the serpent here gets closer to the equator of the Earth in its path, it will become total, and then it will draw away and it become, partial and then penumbral until it dies. And this, like I said before, takes around 1200 to 1600 years, one eclipse. And at any given time, we have, I think it's about 19 or 20 eclipses kind of crossing, like in their path, kind of like circulating the Earth. Each of them bringing something for us to evolve through. Something about evolution is being like highlighted. And it doesn't matter that it, let's just say the eclipse we just had, it was not visible for us in the US. It doesn't matter that it was not visible, it affects the whole globe. So I think that's a myth that has to be kind of like discarded, that if it is visible in my area, then it's going to be stronger. It may be stronger, but we all get affected. I think you all know that at this point that a solar eclipse is a new moon very close to the nodes, and a lunar eclipse is a full moon very close to the nodes. And the degrees, I think it's for a solar, is 20 to 10 degrees from the nodes. And with a lunar eclipse, it's a little smaller. It's 10 to 5 degrees, then it's an eclipse. If it's a little further than 10, then we're not having an eclipse. So this is how sometimes you can kind of track the chart, and you can see that it's quite far from the north, and we're still considering that an eclipse, because there is like a degree area where they actually occur. So that's kind of why I chose this. Every eclipse, as it passes, the one we just had, will happen again, that same Saros, in 18 years. I think it's 18, 9 or 11 plus days. And it will hop about 10 degrees on the zodiac. So chances are it may not hit your chart again the way it hit this time, and because it's going to like be 10 degrees further. So that's kind of to give you an idea why it is so hard to work with them, because they have these paths, and there are so many of them happening at the same time. Even the ones that you get in the same sign come from a different family of eclipses. So you gotta take that into account when you are working with an eclipse. Now, the best way to work with eclipses for a particular chart is to see which eclipse you were born under, meaning what is the pre-eclipse, the eclipse that took place right before you were born, or the one that you were born right very close to it happening. And even then it gets tricky. You kind of have to do some research to see how the energy feels. Like, I'm kind of born in the middle of two, and I definitely feel like I've did some research on both Saros, and I can feel both of their influence on me, not just the pre. So that's for like individual, like if you want to work with eclipses yourself. It's just not enough to know it happened on this node or on that node. You kind of have to go further into their own families and get that energetic imprint that they bring. And now the magic of eclipses and why it is that we have eclipses is a pretty rare thing. And we have this beauty of synchronicities, or of numbers that are in the exact proportion. And this is why we get an eclipse, because how can the moon, being so much smaller than the sun, actually cover it? And the reason for that is because of this chart that I have right here. And there are more numbers involved and a lot of magic here. 108 is a pretty sacred number, and in Eastern traditions too, there are 108 beats in a mala. Yogis do 108 sun salutations and solstices and equinoxes. So it's a number that we find a lot. And if you can see here, we have 108 chakras actually, aside from the main ones that we are used to knowing about or working with. There are all these other amounting to 108. And so here we have that the reason why it actually happens is because the moon is 108 moons. The Earth is 108 moons from the moon, meaning this distance here, if we put every 108 moons, we get the distance from moon to Earth. And the sun is, if we put 108 suns here, like the diameter of the sun, that would be the distance to the Earth. I know from it's twinning, right? You always kind of like, let me say that. The average distance between moon and Earth is 108 the moon diameter. Yeah. And then the sun is 108 Earths put together. So it keeps repeating, this number keeps repeating here. And that's the reason, like, they are at a perfect distance from each other, all these three celestial bodies, that it can happen. I don't think that's coincidental, and it's just my personal opinion, that it's just too much there, too much going on for that to be just random, and for that number to be so important. Now we have that the molecular weight of silver is almost 108 units, and the moon is a silver lady, and this just keeps repeating. See right here, we have that. A lot of the numbers keep coming up. So This is why we have eclipses. If any of this was not there, it just wouldn't align. And when this happens, it's called syzygy. We have a syzygy between three celestial bodies, and then we can have eclipses. And about, we're still in eclipse season, obviously, because we're still having one next, next week, the 5th or the 6th. And I'm going to kind of concentrate on mainly this one here, the one on June 5th, and the one on December 14th. These are the eclipses for the year, so you'll know about. And so the one we, not that one, this one, the one on the solstice, that was a very big event for us. And one thing to notice before we jump into that is that we have, in this season that we're in, instead of a pair, we have a triad. We have 3 eclipses taking place. And we have one solar that is kind of sandwiched in 2 penumbral eclipses, which kind of means that they're kind of passing the baton. There's one family of eclipses, or this one, that is dying off, is kind of approaching, I think it's been around for about close to 1200 years, and a new one that's being born. Remember how I said that when they're beginning, they're very tiny. So this too, there's something here to say about passing the baton, which indicates the transitional time we're in. It just illuminates how much of a transition we are all going through right now. And anyways, so questions so far?
Hi, Barbara. I have a question. Thank you so much for doing this. So how do you know when you look at, how can you find out when the eclipse was before and after you were born? How would you see that in a chart?
You can either just use the chart and kind of like go back to see when the last full and new moon took place very close to the nodes. Remember, like taking into account the degrees that I mentioned, for the solar would be 20 and below, and for the lunar it would be 10 and below. Or you can just go online and go eclipse seasons for the year you were born, and you can kind of check. And you can do eclipse season or eclipses for a certain year with their Saras family, and then you can check and get the number for the Saras and go down that rabbit hole if you want to. Mm-hmm. Cool. You can find anything online, everything. I think dateandtime.com is a website that dedicates a lot to eclipses. So time and date, just put it on Google and you get it. So in terms of this, the one that we're kind of under the effect right now, which is the one on the solstice, there's just so much on that eclipse. I don't know how you guys felt it, but to me, it was huge. It was massive. It happened at 0 Cancer. I'm gonna just go into the next, because that's the one, I think. Yeah. So that's the eclipse, and then we get, I think I have the wrong date. I think it should be the 21st. Let me check. Yeah, it should. It should be the 21st. Most of the transits are going to be very close. The eclipse took place, and then a couple of hours later, I think it was about 8 hours later, that the solstice happened, when the moon moved into Cancer. So with that one, 0 Cancer is such a hinge point, and it's a cardinal sign. It marks a beginning of something. But it's in an area of the Milky Way as well that is called the spine of Gaia. It is a sacred place that the Lakota and a lot of Native Americans refer to as a sacred hook. And to them, this is the area where our souls come into the world. And we only align to that area of the sky for a period of time for about 40 or 50 years, every 26,000 years. So we're in a pretty special time right now. We're aligning to a very particular hinge point, not just in our tropical zodiac, but also with the Milky Way. So there is something that is marking a beginning here, a return of the feminine, if you will, with that zero Cancer. Where, and it's very interesting that the moon, yeah, this is the wrong day, because the moon goes a little further. It's very interesting to see this 29 degrees of Gemini and the zero Cancer for the sun. So there's something here about having to rewrite our story in a different way. It's just Gemini with a lot of diversity. But the story this time has to bring and incorporate the feminine, the gentleness. It has to incorporate our feelings. Because this is being dismantled here, and it has been, the Capricorn status structure has been being dismantled for a while now. We can see it everywhere. It's falling apart all around us. And it will continue to do so for us to recover this feminine aspect. So that to me was incredible, and it was extremely powerful. It falls right on my moon. I'm in Cancer. And the last time this happened, that same eclipse on a solstice was September, it was actually June 1st of 2001. And a couple of months later, we get something that we get September 11th. And that changed everything in the world. It changed the way we travel. It changed the way we view other people. And it kind of like, the theme that I was able to capture is very similar to what happened to me now. I was about to move out of state, and just a few days before the eclipse, and I had everything ready, I got blocked. Because COVID is surging up in Arizona, it got canceled. And during that eclipse in 2001, I was coming to the US for the first time. Actually, my travel date was September 11th. Needless to say that I didn't make it. I got to London, and my plane just as I'm about to take off. I'm around, and I cannot. And I find myself experiencing very similar themes of just feeling powerlessness. There's something blocking me, and I can't control it. So that was kind of for me. My invitation for you is to kind of go back to that time and do this with eclipses a lot. Like, see where it falls in your chart. If it's activating something poignant, then really pay attention to that and check. See when was the last time this actually happened? Was there a time when it happened very close to that area? What was I doing? What was I feeling? Because that's the way that we all become more in tune to these transits and can work with them better. Otherwise, it's just like this theory kind of unpredictability, like there's no pattern to it. So in terms of the transits that took place here, I mean, the alignments, we have that Neptune and Mars are in Pisces, I was putting the notes, which again, that Neptune square in the notes has been like providing to this confusing times that we're in. It's just so hard to know who's telling the truth. What's the truth? What's the truth about this whole thing, this whole COVID? Yeah. And my sense is that we're going to continue to feel this way for a little. And with Mars there's kind of like a directionless, like a lack of direction. Because Mars in Pisces, Mars is being very action driven, but in Pisces it kind of gets diluted. It kind of has, I'm not sure where I'm going. I'm not sure where to go. So we have that combination of an energy that's kind of like dancing in that ocean, being kind of tossed around. And Neptune is really illuminating how, like, we don't know anything. We just think we know. Okay. Then we have, it's very interesting that Lilith is actually squaring the sun and squaring the nodes. And she's there conjunct Aries. in Aries. And I think what she represents here is what's being outcasted in our societies. We have all these Black Lives Matters, all these people screaming. She was that primordial woman that got pushed aside. No, you're not. You're bad. You're wrong. And yeah, so there is so much that we are needing to look at in our collective and even within ourselves. What's being outcasted? What needs a voice that needs to be reclaimed? And with that Mercury retrograde in Cancer, it has to be reclaimed through our emotions, through our getting in touch with that. How am I feeling this? How am I holding space for all of this? Where am I coming from with this? And that's the way to do it, to bring that element so we can build a new way of being in the world, because we're kind of at that transitional point. Everything is pointing into that. And we need to be able to midwife it in a way that is going to be sustainable. Very interesting as well that Hygeia, the asteroid Hygeia, is right there with the sun. When we are the most concerned about hygiene and viruses and all these things. So it's just a very, very graphic chart for the eclipse. And remember, whatever is going on during an eclipse, that energy is going to stay with us at least during that entire eclipse season. This is the most intense, like when we are in the dragon hole. We're not out of it yet because we still have another eclipse, another hole that we gotta come out of. Once we close that, the intensity may come down, but we're working with the energy. And it's really important how we set ourselves up during the moment when we are in the dragon hole. How are we responding to this? How are we acting? That's going to make a huge difference on whether this is going to be traumatic in our lives or whether we're going to respond to this in creating it. So it's a really intense time, but I encourage you to really hold space for yourself and be really gentle with yourselves as well, and work with this the best that you can so you can set out for the next 6 months at least. I want to mention that Venus, and at the time of this eclipse, is still in Gemini, kind of about to station direct. She's a morning star at this point, and Venus in the morning star is kind of that, like that Aries. She's primordial, she is outspoken, she's a warrior. And in Gemini, it kind of has this quality of the rainbow, of diversity. And she's there kind of pointing to that story that we need to write, where we bring and take agency of all these things that have not been voiced and have not been accepted, and how can we bring all that into our collective in a Cancerian way, in a very kind of motherly, we're going to embrace you here and allow you to have a voice. And then we have as well that we're about to have that Pluto Jupiter conjunction. And I had I did a presentation in my meetup, I think it was back in April, and I was talking about this kind of like whole COVID, what can we expect? And I think I mentioned that we may see another, like, surge up of the virus by the time that these two get together again. And here we are, we're seeing the spikes in a lot of states. So with that, there's just so much we don't know, and a lot that is going behind the scenes. The guidance that I got when I was kind of tuning into this chart and in my meditation was, nothing is what it seems. So just take everything with a pinch of salt and kind of be eager to get more of the truth as we progress. Because right now I feel there's so much that's kind of happening hidden. We have here Saturn is in conjunct with the sun, and an inconjunction issue is something we cannot quite bring into focus. It's an irritation but we can't kind of work with it the same way we work with a square. A square is a very dynamic thing. We're gonna be faced to it, confronted. But in conjunct is kind of like, I don't feel this, I'm not sure what it is. So Saturn there is kind of speaking to the new ways we can structure our societies, the innovation, so we can actually move through with this. And it's bringing that, but it's not in focus, and it's also warning us of the utopia of our societies and how in all of this that we are doing, we can lose the cancer, we can lose the contact, in touch, in person kind of feel with each other. So there is kind of like all this innovation and novelty that you can move towards. But what about this part where I want to connect? Well, it's not the same to be on Zoom all the time as it is to sit with somebody across a table and have a coffee and really feel that presence. So yeah, those two. We have a lot of retrogrades, which is also, that means that the planets their volume is up for those planets because they're closer to Earth. Whenever a planet is retrograde, it's closer to us. So it's kind of bringing up the volume, and it's working in a way that is not the usual way that they work. It's more inward. It's kind of like with Mercury, you know that. So it's bringing a revisioning aspect to all of the archetypes that they represent, while they're kind of like screaming out loud, like, review me, but I'm very strong and I'm very here. So that's another reason why this was very, very intense. And in my opinion, it's just really marking a huge transitional point that will just kind of continue for us. Any questions? Okay. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this one. This one is gonna be the last we have the solar on December 14th. Let me go back to, So we're having, I'll go back to that in a moment. We're finishing up here the Cancer Capricorn series, and we are kind of passing it on to the Gemini Sagittarius. So that's another thing you can kind of look and work with in your charts, or with people, to see where that is in your chart, what area, and go back in time. When was the last time we had eclipses in those signs, and what were the themes for me, taking into account that they were probably not from the same families. So having that in mind, okay? So we're finishing up, and we're kind of going into this other dragon hole here, but we're going to be with Gemini Sagittarius for a while. Like the next season, we're just having them in Gemini Sagittarius. And we'll start with a lunar, and then we'll go to a total solar eclipse. And I think this one is going to be the one that I want to focus on because of the transits involved. Went too far. Okay. So we see that here, again, we have Neptune squaring the nodes, and how that's going to be pretty much a theme for this entire year. So we're going to have to figure out what the truth is. The thing about Saturn and how it's associated with the term confusing, it's the term, I think I got this from Rick Levin. He loves words. He knows about the etymology of every word that's out there. And he was explaining that the word confusion comes from the Greek, which means with fusion, meaning everything is fused together. So when everything is fused together, we just don't know what's what. I don't know where the boundaries are. I don't know what's me, what's you, if everything is kind of like in a soup together. And this is why Neptune can be associated with that state of confusion, because it blurs the boundaries, it blurs everything. Where there is no ego identification. And it's here square in this note, kind of teaching us a lesson and showing us skip step, which we, that's the way we usually approach this in evolutionary astrology. What is it about this that we need to recover when it comes to this axis, okay? What are we releasing here? The dogma, the truth, what worldview has to change for us to be able to open up to a new way of viewing reality that is more diverse, that is wider, and at the same time, knowing that none of that represents truth with a capital T, because that's here, that's in spirit, that's source. So how can we trust this and really allow us to just be held in that space of trust, knowing that we play here as human beings, but owning the projections and how we try to just project that and make that be the ultimate reality, the ultimate truth. And I think that's the main work that we have to do. And we're being confronted with this day and night. Like, I don't know, I read one thing here and then the next thing I read contradicts it. I'm like, I don't even know what's true anymore. And I hear this from a lot of people that are not in astrology or into anything else. They just tell me, I don't think this thing is real anymore. I don't know what to believe. So it's kind of pushing us back into ourselves to look for that truth and to be really open or be really polarized, which is the other aspect of Gemini. Be really polarized. No, this is what I believe, and I'm gonna fight you until the end, till I convince you, or until we're just not talking to each other anymore. I mean, I see that too, and it's even happened in my own home where the polarization is quite present. And I think from my perspective, it is going back to that work in Saturn and Pisces, is being able to surrender, that we don't know enough to worry, that we don't have all the answers, that we're probably never going to have them, that when we have them, they come through our lenses that are conditioned by our own worldview. But the condition is we carry as a soul, we carry from being born in a particular family, in a particular country, that's always there. So we can access this and approach it from that position. But when we go and say, this is the truth, and you either ascribe to this, or you're wrong, or you're this, then we're just going to continue kind of like spinning our wheels like we have been for quite a while. So this eclipse in Sagittarius is conjunct Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini. So there's something there being illuminated too about the way we think about our truth and our worldview, and how there is something new there that needs to come through. Kind of like what I was saying before, squaring Neptune. It is to surrender here and to be more open. I think that's we have a conjunction here of Saturn and Jupiter. It's going to be the last time they conjunct in an Earth sign. Then they're going to conjunct right after that in Aquarius, and they're going to start a new cycle. So that's another transition. So many cycles are ending right now. They were kind of in this like mud zone where you just don't know what's tomorrow going to bring. So this is very interesting that they're going to conjunct there for the last time and initiate a new cycle in an air sign, bringing more of that Aquarian age that we're inevitably moving towards. And I think the main thing for us to remember with the last eclipse that we had at 0 Cancer is that we cannot forget. We cannot forget the personal and the human element in this Aquarian era age that we are ushering. Or else we're just going to become too dissociated from each other, too dissociated from our hearts, from our emotions, and kind of like robots, kind of like machines. So that's kind of like that. The past eclipse is really pointing that. It's really triggering all of us so much They're going to remind us our humanity. That yes, we have all these things that are great and we're going to continue to use them. And a lot of innovation is going to come, and a lot of different ways of being in the world. It's a great Aquarius can bring so much, but don't forget that you're human beings in human bodies with emotional bodies. Gotta bring that in, or it'll be a very cold and mental state of being where Gaia again is kind of forgotten. How are we doing on time? I can't.
Yes, Barbara, if you begin with the volunteers pretty soon, they can have 10 minutes each and then we should be right.
All right, let me just check to see if I'm not missing anything here. Any questions?
Oh, Barbara, do you happen to know where Hygeia would be in this chart?
Right here.
Oh, there. Okay, thank you. Good.
Yeah, it's right there in Leo. Yeah, I think, yeah, forming a trine with Mars and with the sun and the moon and the whole thing up there. So hopefully we have more of a sense, because it's not real, control or sense of a hold on this whole COVID by then, what we don't feel. We're so triggered by this Hygeia aspect. That's my hope. Yeah, let's go to the volunteers. That's just my information. That's my website, deep-journeys.com. That's my email. And I also have a Patreon page. I have a podcast that I just started. And I also have a meetup called Soulful Astrology Meetup if you're interested in the events, the things we do there. We do them online now. This is why I'm offering them to you, because otherwise it would be in person here in the Colorado area. And who wants to go first? I can just move this around. You, Caroline? You're muted, I think.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah. This is you, right? I didn't mix them up.
No, that's me.
So I'm so curious about your chart because you have Uranus at 0 Cancer. So curious about how this was for you, and if you can find a similar theme to that one, that year of 2001 that I was mentioning.
I tend to look for, when I think of eclipses, I think of things outside myself. And the eclipses that you've mentioned before this one, I see as I'm coming to understand how I learn who I am, what I think, what's important to me. But this one, a few days before the eclipse on the 21st, my daughter phoned me from a 20-hour drive away, having a full-fledged panic attack. And that threw me. Linda had noticed, I think it was Linda had noticed that, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, there was something square my moon. But
Uranus is.
Right. So Uranus in my natal chart is out of bounds, and it is conjunct not only, and the eclipse was not only conjunct my Uranus, but also my Venus star point, the head of my Venus star point. And I'll be real brief, but the eclipse hit my daughter on her midheaven IC axis. She has Uranus and Neptune conjunct her midheaven. So what I'm saying is I had that to deal with, and she had it to deal with, and luckily so did her therapist, who was a phone call away. So it threw me. It just threw me into a dither of sorts. And when I think about 2001, I can remember 9/11, walking into the staff room. I had just gone back to teaching. I just got a full-time contract. And everything, so when I look at the two eclipses, I see just unreal things happening, things that you wouldn't, like the virus is unexpected. 9/11 was unexpected. My daughter, a very, very strong person who holds it together, finally cracked. And that was something that needed to happen. So I don't know if I'm giving you anything of
Yeah,
support.
yeah, I mean, definitely. And solar eclipses tend to bring up external events. More so, lunar tend to be more about our inner emotional state of affairs and how that produces external events. And solar sometimes is more like external events kind of come at us and kind of, so it makes sense. And it happened right on your Uranus that is squaring your moon and Jupiter.
Right.
There of like a trauma signature of emotional component, right? Like something that came at you very unexpectedly from out of nowhere and impacted the emotional, it's your daughter.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I see that. And it was also on your Jupiter for sure.
My Jupiter's been very involved in my chart, I guess since last year when I had a Jupiter return. And then it's going to come up again. The eclipse, December 14th, will be 1 degree away from my natal Jupiter. So it's
yeah.
Yeah,
it's going to be right on your Jupiter, which is going to activate this whole thing again because it activates. Yeah, it's going to activate that T-square you got going on between the moon and Jupiter and Uranus. Yeah. And yeah, I'm just wondering how that manifests for you. And it kind of threw you into a crisis, right? Sixth house, when in Virgo, crisis of sort, where now you have to sort of wrap your head around a new way of viewing things.
Yes, that is a process that's been happening since Uranus crossed my ascendant in 2018. I'm seeing, gradually at first I saw nothing, but I'm feeling and seeing more and looking so much less to the outside world. I'm just, I'm just figuring out who I am and what I think. And then I have, the other thing that happened, has been happening with the 21st eclipse was I've been pretty much a hermit. And all of a sudden, like I'm looking out my window and I'm seeing lawn chairs where my friend, a bread lady who delivers bread, comes. Like it's my whole third house is opening up in a really nice way, in a very friendly way.
Very cool. Yeah. So definitely brace for that one again. Kind of really pay attention to how it impacts and activates this. And work with whatever comes your way in terms of, a crisis, a kind of a shock that gets impacted. And it's going to bring something about the way you view the world, your belief system. It's going to illuminate something there for you to explore and just remember, even if it's an external event, it usually responds to something in the unconscious that is unseen for us. So if you can hold space for that and work with that in a way that what's there for me that I haven't seen before, and how can I address this and engage with it differently.
In this time, what has been, is, and will continue to be very helpful to me, I know, my spiritual practice is more consistent, is deeper, is calmer, it's such a gift. I'm in contact with people that kind of pray and chant and do what I do. We do it online, and it's very deep, very deep.
That's very nice. That's definitely going to anchor you.
Yeah.
And you have that Uranus conjuncting your North Node right now. Kind of bringing a lot of activity to that area of your life, to your identity, to kind of like what's the story there? What am I walking towards and I'm integrating here in this very kind of embodied way. Self-reliant, yeah. New way of valuing yourself, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who is Robin or Lisa? I can't see you yet. Robin?
Yes.
I can only see one person at a time. If I want to see, oh, there you are. Okay, I see you now. Okay. So you're getting a nodal return, so you're going to get a lot of eclipses kind of activating your nodal axis.
Yes.
And a big square. Oh,
And my skip steps.
yeah, a ton of them. How is that working for you? I bet that maybe the other ones are being more activating for you than the Cancer one.
Yeah. Well, the June 5th was just directly opposing my moon. And,
Right.
you know, at the same time, I was having the Mars return while it was conjunct Neptune.
Right.
So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, a lot of stuff going on all at the same time. And the other eclipse in January at 20 Cancer was on my Venus.
Wow.
So most of that.
Having a lot of activity, and you will continue for a while.
Yeah.
So definitely, like I said before, they're showing you something. They're going to bring things up from the unconscious and illuminate and kind of activate trigger points that are going to activate this whole thing.
Yeah.
For you. So in this next year, couple of years, year and a half, you're gonna have to do a lot of work with this. What's the, let me see. Yeah. And it's much, in my opinion, at least, when we do the skip steps, it's not so much that you're moving towards the north or the south, but you're kind of balancing between both. You're integrating south and north node. And when we have this here, it's kind of like we're going on a river, and this is like from one node to the other, and then we have this kind of undercurrent that goes and kind of throws you off course.
Mm-hmm.
Like either stuck on one or overdoing. Because the thing with the north, we can overdo that one and kind of lose sight of this, or we can get completely stuck here and all of the default unconscious things that are familiar to us. So it is about bringing a balance between the two.
Yeah, I've had to do a lot of work with getting out of the default patterns for Gemini.
How does that work for you? How does it?
Well, it's still a learning process, you know, because it's really hard. Because I want to, I always want to just like more and more information, get more and more information, and be really scattered and not stick to a routine. And so I've had to learn a lot. It's been a struggle, and I'm learning as I'm getting older the benefits of sticking to routines and, you know, being more focused, more narrowly focused. So, and yeah, it's been a lot of activity with my 7th house with the first eclipse, and the second with 6th, 7th house too, really. So a lot of relationship dynamics, and feeling really affected by all of this polarization with the coronavirus and with the masks and people refusing to wear the masks. And it's really affecting me very deeply. It really irritates me badly that people are refusing to wear masks. And, you know, where I live, the virus is just like skyrocketing like crazy. And 5 minutes before this meeting, I just found out my son-in-law was exposed on his way on a business trip a few days ago. And so now my daughter and her whole family are in quarantine. And
wow, it's devastating. It's so like I said, it's hard to work and predict them unless we go into the Saros and we go into the pre-eclipse, and we obviously don't have a lot of time to do that right now. This is why I kind of wanted you guys, and I wanted to have more of a conversation on how it's showing up for you, so you can kind of get a theme going and start working with them. Of course, you know it's going to hit this entire, it's going to activate that T-score that you got going on. And it's an opportunity for you again to, you know, to work with these skip steps and to find more balance between those two. Gemini is in the Virgo house, so you have an extra, the Mercury is active, it's very restless, it's very mental. But these two are in the 9th house of Jupiter, so, and also an extra Virgo there. So there is like a very intense polarization between these archetypes, this Gemini and Sag archetype, that is trying to find balance, and surrender is going to be a huge aspect of this.
right. Yeah. This is a time, I guess, to learn to surrender. I'm having a hard time. I feel like I've been having a hard time lately focusing. I try to listen to things, and it's like I'm having a hard time even listening. And I just, I think, you know, everything going on in the world contributes to that. But still, personally, it's just, I'm finding it difficult to maintain a focus.
Right, and maybe it's more about turning to less analog information, as
Right.
just more chanting or music or just movement.
Right.
More,
Stop allowing myself to be so overloaded with information. I think that's what it is.
more into that Piscean or Sag realm of natural or music, of movement, or something that gets you out of that left brain a little bit.
Yeah.
Balances both, for sure.
Right. Yeah. That's probably going to be my big lesson this year.
I'm sorry I can't get further deep into this because we're kind of constrained for time. Constraint. And Lisa.
Hi.
Any questions? Comments?
Questions. I can tell you what happened on the lunar eclipse on June 5th. I was, you know, you were talking about how it's more within, and I was very within, and, you know, did like a little prayer circle. I have 2 teenagers and my husband, and we just prayed for peace because things were pretty intense, you know, with the riots and everything. Was just felt a lot. And so it was pretty mellow. Nothing bad happened. Everything was good and fine. You know, we just feel really blessed that our lives are peaceful, and we just, you know, are doing the best we can, you know, through this time. But then that's the solar eclipse. It was, so first it was summer solstice, and that was on the 20th. And then everything was fine, and I was working, and although with back to the lunar eclipse, I had so much focus this entire 2020, and I've been in school and working on projects and just really focused, more focused than I've been in years. And it felt amazing. And then after that lunar eclipse, I don't know if it was everything going on with the virus and just, and like people, protesting, but then it mixing up with like the violence, and it's just really intense. I'm very sensitive, and my focus is just really, really low since then. And I keep trying, and I have the intention of being focused, but it's like it takes me forever to really get it going. And then once I'm doing what I need to do, I can stick with it for an hour or two, and then I lose focus again. It's really strange. But when the summer solstice came, I was working hard, and I was really excited to work hard that day. And the next day was Father's Day, and we were going down to the creek with my husband, and I wanted to take the whole day off and just celebrate him. And I was feeling good. And I run a health food co-op that once a month, the truck comes and delivers the food, and everybody orders online. I don't have to do that much, just a few emails and whatever. And so something happened when people went to pick up their food. Somebody didn't show up, and somebody else took the food. I wasn't there. Well, that's someone whose food got taken, and it wasn't taken. It was like the person did them a favor. They took their food and texted them and said, "I'm going to hold your food. It's here." Well, the people freaked out and called the cops on the other one, and like the cops showed up. I mean, it was like a nightmare. And I'm on the phone with these people. They're yelling at me, and I've been running this co-op for like, I don't know, not 10, 11 years. And it's just super chill. Everybody's really nice. And it really threw me off. Like Carolyn was saying, she got really thrown off by, her daughter. Well, these people were people I didn't know, and a friend of mine who got the food did the favor, and I kind of had to deal with it all. And I just I had to process it and then let it go. And the next day I went to the creek, and that was really good, just swimming and relaxing in the sun and having bare feet on the earth, so I made a few changes. So my co-op isn't open to the public anymore. So anybody they can join, but I have to approve them. And I made another little change, just like a technical change. And so I was able to like handle the situation, but oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. It was like my day went from peaceful and happy, and I was, just enjoying what was happening in the astrology, and just, being prayerful and peaceful, to like someone yelling in my ear on the phone, for like 45 minutes straight, not understanding that it's a cooperative and we help each other out. And so, yeah, so that was just bizarre.
It was a solar, right?
That was on the solar eclipse. It was like right as it started, started happening. And it was just like, it really threw me off, but I was able to navigate it. And so I feel pretty good about, just talking about it stressed me out. But yeah, I just gotta let it go. It's not, it wasn't about me at all, but yeah, it was really rough.
Yeah, and that tends to be more external, and it was opposing your Mars very quickly. So it kind of like took you out of that. I don't know if that got you in touch more of, because what eclipses usually tend to do is get us in touch with something that we were unconscious about. I don't know if that got you more in touch with that martial energy, like your own ability to have not aggression, but like to step up and like kind of confront a situation like this and do something about it, like the action taken.
Yeah.
Because it definitely puts you in touch with that Mars right away. You could not escape that anymore. You were to, be more assertive, take kind of Capricorn control in a very Mars way. So I don't know if that brought you in touch with an aggression that is unclaimed, or that you're seeing in others that maybe needs to be claimed for yourself. No claim that you're going to act it out, but recognized and claimed, since it's, you know, the opposite side of that Mars, and it really activated Mars for you in Capricorn. That's kind of that's what comes to me from your chart with that one. And the other one, the confusion, you know, it hit very in your 12th house. I can't remember the degrees, but it's right there on your Jupiter Neptune conjunction in your as a skip step. So it could have just kind of thrown you off balance there and brought all that 12th house confusion and lack of focus, maybe in a way to maybe get you out of an old mode of doing something or of having control in the world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm producing, well, now you're going to be confused for a while, so you can't do that kind of way.
Well, you know, the co-op it's a real, you know, I don't make money. I just do it like volunteer work. And so when things go wrong, you know, I'm like, well, you know, because it's like another company we get the food from, and I just organize it. But, you know, I'm not responsible for, everybody's responsible to pick up their own food. But so it was kind of good because the two changes I made, you know, it was like super Capricorn, like you said. I just took control of the situation, made the changes, and I was like, okay. And I didn't even like kick out the people who called the police or anything. I kind of just want to be forgiving and realize that maybe they were just probably having the worst day of their life or something. And so, you know, hopefully it all goes all right. But, you know, another thing that's happening in my chart is I just had my Chiron return. And so I was kind of wondering if something weird was going to happen. And that was pretty weird. So you know, something very Chiron can, you know, I don't know. I don't have direct experience that I know that Chiron was doing something on my chart, but I know the way that astrologers talk about Chiron and, you know, being the wounded healer. So I don't know if that has anything to do with any of it, but that already happened maybe like a month and a half ago.
We would have to go into an exploration of your relationship to anger and confrontation and the masculine, and see where that Chiron is kind of wounded and where the masculine is, because there may be something here with your reaction to that, you know, oh my God, no, peace, aggression, no. I wonder what part of that is unclaimed for you.
Well, I mean, my personality is I can be pretty fiery, you know. I've had to work a lot to control my anger and my fieriness, which normally I'm pretty peaceful, but then I have that in me. And so, yeah, so when that happened, it was like the last thing I wanted to be dealing with. But I dealt with it okay. I mean, I finally kind of lost my patience with the people, but I mean, anybody would. I did pretty good for about a half hour. And then I was like, come on, guys. But, you know, I didn't yell back at them or anything. So, but yeah, there's probably some stuff in my chart that I could look at that would help me deal with anger stuff.
My dog, sorry. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, I think we are at the end where Linda is probably having to stop it. Right, Linda?
Okay. Thank you, Doggy. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our volunteers. This was an excellent meeting. I really love the volunteers' feedback. Barbara, thank you so much, and we're looking forward to catching you next time.
Lisa, thank you, everybody.
Could everyone unmute and thank Barbara Yuruvich Arias?
Thank you, Barbara. That was excellent. Thank you, Linda, as always.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. Bye. That's it.
Bye.